For my policy analysis project, I chose to examine the social media policy at Apple. First, let's take a look at the issue and identify some key stakeholders. As one might expect of an organization the size of the legal budget of Apple, identifying an issue not addressed in policy is nearly impossible. Much like policy on school grounds using school equipment, Apple's policy about what happens on corporate premises with Apple-owned equipment is quite robust. However, the one area that seems to have a bit of wiggle room is employee activity for work from home employees. Apple has had some form of work from home employees within AppleCare since at least 2007. With the recent pandemic, all employees were working from home. When Apple retail stores shut near the beginning of 2020, Apple shipped equipment to employees so retail could help take phone calls and chats, since that was the only support available at the time. Despite everyone at Apple getting some work from home experience, the policy around employees' use of social media and other activities can be summarized as 1. Protect Apple's secrets, 2. Protect customer information and confidentiality, 3. Be nice. Even if you don't identify yourself as an Apple employee, be kind in your interactions. While these are good common sense, I'm surprised at the lack of granularity in the policy. I think there may be an opportunity here for more clarity. The issue is very important to me as I've worked remotely for Apple for over a decade now. Naturally, I've never run afoul of any of the established policies, but it is interesting to examine them critically. Stakeholders in the conversation would be representatives of several Apple departments. Certainly, we would need people, formerly HR, legal, ideally some form of leadership or management, as well as individual contributor employees. Next, let's take a look at similar policies at similar companies. There are certainly very real consequences for using social media in regards to work. While parts of the policy are spelled out in the business conduct document, there are lots of areas that could use more detail, especially in regards to what rises to the level of a fireable offense. I chose other computer and technology corporations to compare with Apple's policies. Some of them are fairly similar, and some are vastly different than Apple's approach. I'll examine a few key points of each and then share some pros and cons. Microsoft's Trust Code is their guiding principle for business conduct. The document provides a framework for building trust with customers, governments, communities, internal communication, and trust with investors and the public, as well as corporate representatives. It doesn't speak specifically to using social media, but deals in more general terms. One of the main guidelines is, when making decisions, ask yourself, does this strengthen or harm Microsoft's reputation with investors and the public? It goes on to call out specifically not trading on inside information, keep accurate records and contracts, communicate accurately to the public, safeguard Microsoft's resources, and protect confidential information and intellectual property. Microsoft's approach seems to be one of broad strokes. While the guidelines presented are applicable to many different situations and environments, they are so vague as to cause some debate if an infraction has occurred. Microsoft does provide a number of escalation paths for concerns or questions via email and phone through management or more specific business conduct and ethics teams. Without specifics, this type of policy may be difficult to enforce unless clear damage has been done by the actions of an employee. Dell's How We Win is a business code of conduct that covers similar ground as Apple and Microsoft. However, this document has much more specific information in regards to social media expectations around employee expression. There's a detailed social media policy that is publicly available as well. They break it down into 5 social media principles: be nice, have fun, and connect, protect information, be transparent and disclose, follow the law and follow the code of conduct, and finally, be responsible. On the surface, these seem like vague platitudes as seen with other corporate policies. However, if you read the details specifically of be transparent and disclose, there is much more specific guidance around social media use. Quote, you should always use the I work for Dell hashtag in any post that discusses Dell technologies. The disclosure needs to be in a place that is hard to miss, so simply having it in your bio, buried between 2 other hashtags, or in a place that requires the viewer to click or go somewhere else to see the disclosure is not enough. In stark contrast to Apple's policy of not speaking to the press or public and referring to the public relations team, Dell encourages employees to share news and information. Quote, all team members are encouraged to speak about the company and share news and information, but only authorized and trained spokespeople may speak on behalf of Dell Technologies and issue official company responses. Dell's plan has much more specific guidance and therefore would be easier to understand and enforce if an infraction occurs. I'm a bit surprised at the suggestion that everyone should share company news. While the document does acknowledge employees need to identify themselves clearly and indicate any opinions are their own, it seems like this would confuse or dilute from official messaging from public relations and/or marketing. IBM's Trust Comes First is a fairly typical business conduct guidelines document. It does have some specific social media guidance, however. Quote, anything said or written in public from the town square to social media sites will remain accessible longer than you intended and may be read at any time by anyone, whether a client, competitor, colleague, journalist, investor, or regulator. It also references a document called IBM Social Computing Guidelines. The URL is currently a broken link, but a search on archive.org reveals this information was up as of May 2020. Quote, in general, what we do in our own time is our business. However, activities in or outside of work that adversely affect IBM job performance, the performance of others, or IBM's business interests will be reviewed in line with our company policy. IBM currently has some fairly common sense guidelines and clear paths to report issues or concerns. While there are some specific guidelines, they seem to be moving away from more specific policies of the recent past. This sort of ambiguity provides some wiggle room and can make it difficult to know what would be considered an infraction of policy. Here are the references of the various quoted documents from their respective sites. Next, I'll recommend some concrete steps to help leadership define expectations and employees to have a clearer understanding of the benefits for a more clear social media policy. Some of the main benefits of a clear and detailed social media policy include protecting the company's reputation. If employees are discriminatory or harass others based on personal traits on social platforms, it can reflect poorly on the organization. Limiting the types of corporate information shared on these platforms help the company control their social media messaging and creates an opportunity for customers to engage with the company through official channels. Clearly outlining what would be grounds for discipline and discharge helps teams document what is in and out of bounds. Protecting privacy of both individuals, clients, and customers is important to maintain professional relationships. Social media can be leveraged to promote company culture and showcase the type of values to which a corporation aspires. Defining a more clear and concrete social media policy has benefits for employees as well. Being conscious of creating a professional social media presence protects an individual's reputation. Knowing in more concrete terms where the line is can help guide interactions. Social media policy can help folks realize what they may be sharing that could be more than they intend, and that what they share may be out there forever. The current Apple policy does well to explicitly protect intellectual property and privacy. There are also many different paths to report concerns. It outlines protection from retaliation from reporting those concerns, and specifically addresses harassment and discrimination. It also protects speech about wages, hours, and working conditions. That being said, there's still plenty of ground to cover. Many aspects are still vague, making enforcement difficult and controversial. Unlike Dell, Apple does not have clear guidance as to whether you should identify yourself as an Apple employee when engaging in social media. This could become an issue if an opinion could be conflated as fact based on your place of employment. It would also be helpful to have clear paths to official channels to redirect conversations that occur in the public sphere to public relations or the team that manages the corporate social media presence, social response. Apple makes it fairly easy to raise concerns and engage stakeholders. Once a policy change is adopted, the people team can use a variety of methods to deliver the news and educate employees about developments. Apple provides several avenues to report a concern. Talking with your direct manager is generally a good place to start. Beyond that, the people team, formerly human resources, supports Apple team members with a wide variety of work questions. They can also engage the appropriate internal teams if a concern requires attention from specific stakeholders. The business conduct team specializes in ethics matters as well as public speaking and press inquiries. They provide a number of ways to report concerns online, via phone, email, or anonymously using a third-party company called EthicsPoint. Finally, each organization is provided a people business partner. They can be a great resource if your concern is with your particular organization itself and you feel like there may be an issue reporting it within your direct leadership structure. Once the concern has been raised, the appropriate team can reach out to other potential stakeholders, such as Apple Legal, Global Security, and Employee Relations. Which stakeholders are engaged depends on the nature of the concern. Once a new policy has been adopted or a significant update has been made to an existing policy, the people team would be in charge of crafting this new policy. Once the policy change is reviewed and approved by relevant stakeholders, the people team would update the documentation on their website. Depending on the nature of the change, an email notification may go out as well, and mandatory training may be developed or updated. If there are concerns that need to be addressed with the policy change itself, employees can submit that feedback via any of the channels in the previous slide, and the review process would begin anew. Having a more explicit and concrete social media policy will have clear benefits for both the company and the employees. Thank you.